Yesterday, so much news. I mean, so much news. We've got Paul Ryan, we've got this investigation into Michael Cohen, got Syria, and then we've got Zuckerberg, which is one of the things I want to talk about today. Mark Zuckerberg up on the Hill testifying before Congress. And all of it, I just want to put all of it into context for a moment, okay? I've talked about this before, but I just want to put it all in one place. We keep hearing this idea of nationalism versus globalism. And what I keep saying is globalism is a false flag term. It's a false term because it's a global world. It is a global world. I mean, people can travel the world, very quickly. They can communicate across the entire globe in a split second. It's going to be a global world. We share ideas. We're all on each other's radar. We see each other. We see what's going on. I can, use a phone the size of a matchbox to talk to somebody in Mozambique right now. It's a global world. That is not the question. The question is whether we are independent actors in a global world and which ideas are going to matter and which ideas are going to colonize the world, and also who makes the decisions. That is the big one. Since progressivism got started, I mean, you can go back to Teddy Roosevelt or, Woodrow Wilson, but since progressivism got started, the idea has been that the notions of the founders were out of date. So, you go back to Wilson, you're talking about really the beginning of the 20th century, early days in the 20th century. And you had Wilson saying, what did he called our inalienable rights a lot of nonsense. He said the inalienable rights of man are mere sentiment and pleasing speculation put forward as fundamental principle. First college president to become president, which should tell you something about college presidents. And he said government should do whatever experience permits or the times demand, and the president is at liberty both in law and conscience to be as big a man as he can. I mean, there's a whole idea that people as wise as Woodrow Wilson, and people, by the way, on the left, they still idolize Wilson. He was a terrible president. He was a racist. He was a tyrant. And these are the things that he believed. He hated the Constitution. And the idea was, the guy's a college president. Are you, the people, going to tell a college president what to do in these complex times? And that was FDR's point, too. He would constantly say, well, when the Constitution, it was written back in horse and buggy days. That was his phrase, back in horse and buggy days. And he would say, that a couple of people got together and for their time, they were doing the right thing and how wonderful. But now we're in this complicated age and we need the experts. Barack Obama, right in that, wheelhouse, basically saying, if I could lock what did he say once? He said something like, if I could solve all these problems without passing laws, I'd do it. The assumption being that he knew how to solve the problems. He and his experts knew how to solve the problems. It was just the Constitution slowing him down. That's the basic idea. And so when they talk about globalism, they're not really talking about globalism. They're talking about rule by the expert elite. And why would anybody want to get in the way of the expert elite? And the idea is, look how wonderful we've done. Look at all the machines you have. Look how healthy you are. Look how poverty has gone down. But of course, the idea that this was done by experts leading is not right. It's not accurate. I mean, after all, Barack Obama had all the experts in the world to help him. And, what happened? I mean, he set the Middle East on fire, right? He got out of Iraq, like the experts said, and Syria and Iraq went, ISIS went through there like a firestorm. He made these deals. Barack Obama was saying, I don't know, it was 2014. Syria has no chemical weapons anymore. Syria, we've done, look how well we've done. Syria has no chemical weapons anymore. Well, now we see that Syria does have chemical weapons. So the experts, not so much. The experts are wonderful. True experts are wonderful. But they need to convince us. We are the judges. We're the jury. We're the voters. They need to come to us and say, this is why you do what you do, and stop lying all the time and stop peddling hysteria like some of the climate change people do. I believe that climate change is a problem, things we have to address, but the hysteria is just to gain power for these elites. So in these last couple of days, we've seen really this move on the part of Mueller, and I said this yesterday, it may be that he has something on Michael Cohen, or it's not really Mueller now, it's been passed off to the Southern District in New York, but it's still the feds going after Michael Cohen, the president's personal attorney. And the word today is that they're going after payments to women that Trump slept with. And my question to these people is not like whether, obviously nobody's above the law, but my question to these people is, are you really going to tell us that you're going to overturn an election because Trump sleeps around? I mean, that's what you're telling us? Is that really what you're going to say? Are you really going to say to Kim Jong-un, the guy coming to speak with you and negotiate with you over nuclearizing your continent, is in trouble because he slept with someone? Is that really what you're going to tell us? I mean, is it really true that you're going to throw this guy out? You're going to impeach him? When the right tried to do that to Clinton, the voters rightly rejected it. I said so at the time. I felt the same way at the time. I thought the voters elected Clinton. This is not how you tell him it's over unless he is committing high crimes and misdemeanors about governance. This is not what you do. So it's in this context that I want to look at Zuckerberg's testimony yesterday. He's still testifying today. So Zuckerberg goes up to Congress, right? And this is a kabuki show. This is a pure show. When Barack Obama was lifting information for his campaign off Facebook, all we heard about was, wow, this young, new president who knows so much he can use Facebook. When there's some proof that Facebook helped Donald Trump get elected, it's like, call that young man into the principal's office right now. He needs a good talking to. And the thing about Zuckerberg is a BS artist. I mean, Zuckerberg has been giving the same speech forever, right? So he goes up before and he apologizes for the fact that his security has been breached and information has been stolen. Play cut number 8.
But it's clear now that we didn't do enough to prevent these tools from being used for harm as well. And that goes for fake news, for foreign interference in elections and hate speech, as well as developers and data privacy. We didn't take a broad enough view of our responsibility, and that was a big mistake. And it was my mistake.
So here's from Wired magazine, right? In 2003, 1 year before Facebook was founded, a website called FaceMash began non-consensually scraping pictures of students at Harvard from the school's intranet and asking users to rate their hotness. Obviously, it caused an outcry. The website's developer quickly proffered an apology. This was Mark Zuckerberg. I hope you understand this is not how I meant for things to go, and I apologize for any harm done as a result of my neglect to consider how quickly the site would spread and its consequences thereafter. I definitely see how my intentions could be seen in the wrong light. 2006, 3 years later, the young company Facebook blindsided its users with the launch of Newsfeed, which collated and presented in one place information that people had previously had to search for piecemeal. Many users were shocked and alarmed that there was no warning and that there were no privacy controls. What did Zuckerberg say? This was a big mistake on our part, and I'm sorry for it. We really messed this one up. We did a bad job of explaining what the new features were and an even worse job of giving you control of them. 2007, a year later, Facebook's beacon advertising system, launched without proper controls or consent, ended up compromising user privacy by making people's purchases public. What did Zuckerberg say? We simply did a bad job with this release, and I apologize for it. I'm not proud of the way we've handled this situation, and I know we can do better. By 2008, Zuckerberg had written only 4 posts on Facebook's blog. Every single one of them was an apology or an attempt to explain a decision that upset users. 2010, after Facebook violated users' privacy, on and on it goes. This is what he does, and it's not going to change. It's the whole point of this. The whole point of this is it's not going to change in terms of them making money, giving your information to advertisers. Sheryl Sandberg, the CEO of Facebook, was on with Savannah Guthrie, and Savannah asked her, is there an opt-out button? Listen to her response.
So here's how our business works. We don't sell data, ever. We do not give personal data to advertisers. People come onto Facebook, they want to do targeted ads, and that's really important for small business. But people want to show ads. We take those ads, we show them, and then we don't pass any individual information back to the advertiser.
You don't have to pass it because you collect all the information and then you target the ads for the advertisers. That's the service that you charge the advertisers
That's
for.
right. And that's a very good service. That's a privacy protective good service.
Could you come up with a tool that said, I do not want Facebook to use my personal profile data to target me for advertising? Would you have an opt-out button? Please don't use my profile data for advertising.
We have different forms of opt-out. We don't have an opt-out at the highest level. That would be a paid product.
That's their business. Their business is commercials, and they use your information to send you the commercials they think you want to see, and they're holding you for ransom, essentially. I love this as a paid product. You can't opt out of that, because that's the business. That is how the business, it's like when you fast forward through commercials on television, you are stripping them of their business model. That is how they make their money. So they're not going to change, and they are tracing you. I mean, Senator Wicker asked Zuckerberg if they were following you after you left Facebook. And here's what Zuckerberg says.
There have been reports that Facebook can track a user's internet browsing activity even after that user has logged off of the Facebook platform. Can you confirm whether or not this is true?
Senator, I want to make sure I get this accurate, so it would probably be better to have my team follow up.
So you don't know?
I know that people use cookies on the internet, and that you can probably correlate activity between sessions. We do that for a number of reasons, including security and including measuring ads to make sure that the ad experiences are the most effective, which, of course, people can opt out of.
But not entirely. They can't entirely opt out of it. So I don't mean to crucify Zuckerberg. Everybody's picking on him because he's kind of weird looking, and he's obviously one of these, computer geniuses, and he's a little offbeat. But that's not the point. He shouldn't be there. The only reason he was called, there was because Donald Trump won the election, and the big state doesn't like it. When I say that, I don't mean that like in some kind of conspiracy. Every time you use the term deep state or big state, people picture those scenes in the movies where two guys in a trench coat sit on a bench in Washington and arrange an assassination. That's not what it is. It's bureaucrats who never get fired and look at the elected officials like a passing fad. What are they there for? And Trump has annoyed them, and Trump has cut some of their power, a lot of their power, really, when you talk about the regulations that he has cut back, and they don't like it. And all of this is about this, and it is about silencing a certain type of voice. Now, we call that voice conservative voices, but in this case, it really is the American voice. It's the voice that says, no, we don't want to be governed by experts. Or if we are going to be governed by experts, we want them to convince us first. We do not want them to have the power, as so many bureaucracies do, to come in and tell me what I can do on my land, what I can do with my property, what I can do with my business without passing a law. That's what we're fighting against. So Ted Cruz, God bless him. God bless Ted Cruz. To me, I'm ready to bronze the guy. I mean, really, he has been one of the really good actors in this. He is, in spite of what President Trump said about him, which was wrong during the election, Cruz has worked with him. He's done his best to keep the government going, and he's done his best to continue to speak for his values, which are our values, or my values at least. And he gave it to Zuckerberg on the one issue that, as far as I'm concerned, that really matters, which is the fact that Facebook has a virtual monopoly on information, Google, YouTube, virtual monopolies on online information, and they are censoring one kind of speech, the speech that says to them, you should not be all powerful, the people should rule. Here is Cruz in one of his finest hours.
Well, Mr. Zuckerberg, I will say there are a great many Americans who I think are deeply concerned that Facebook and other tech companies are engaged in a pervasive pattern of bias and political censorship. There have been numerous instances with Facebook. In May of 2016, Gizmodo reported that Facebook had purposely and routinely suppressed conservative stories from trending news, including stories about CPAC, including stories about Mitt Romney, including stories about the Lois Lerner IRS scandal, including stories about Glenn Beck. In addition to that, Facebook has initially shut down the Chick-fil-A Appreciation Day page, has blocked a post of a Fox News reporter, has blocked over 24 Catholic pages, and most recently blocked Trump supporters Diamond and Silk's page with 1.2 million Facebook followers after determining their content and brand were, quote, unsafe to the community. To a great many Americans, that appears to be a pervasive pattern of political bias. Do you agree with that assessment?
Senator, let me say a few things about this. First, I understand where that concern is coming from because Facebook and the tech industry are located in Silicon Valley, which is an extremely left-leaning place. And this is actually a concern that I have and that I try to root out at the company, is making sure that we don't have any bias in the work that we do. And I think it is a fair concern that that people would at least wonder about.
Let me ask this question. Are you aware of any ad or page that has been taken down from Planned Parenthood?
Senator, I'm not, but let me just...
How about MoveOn.org?
Sorry?
How about MoveOn.org?
I'm not specifically aware of those.
How about
cases.
any Democratic candidate for office?
I'm not specifically aware. I mean,
You know, I frequently wonder and rant about the fact that the right doesn't build its own media. The right doesn't. We sit around and we complain about Hollywood, but we don't build a studio. We sit around and we complain about the fact that Google is now unfairly ranking conservative content and unfairly fact-checking conservative content by liberal fact-checkers like Snopes and PolitiFact. We rail about the fact that Twitter is shadow banning, among others, Senator Cruz. We rail about the fact that Facebook is shutting people down. But we don't build Facebook. We don't build Twitter. We don't build Google. And therefore, our complaints kind of sound ridiculous. And I keep wondering, why not? Why not? I always, for years, I looked at Fox News and I thought, this thing is so successful. Why isn't there a conservative comedy channel? Why isn't there a conservative movie studio? We know that this is an audience base, why don't we use it? It just occurred to me that the reason is the people who do this are the elites, and you're asking them, by supporting conservatives, you're asking them to give up power to the people. Virtually one man has done that in history, George Washington. Remember, the king said, George III said, if he does that, if he turns down the kingship, basically, he will be the greatest man on earth. And these people, when you ask them to stop silencing Glenn Beck, when you ask them to stop silencing Ben or me or any conservative voice, when you ask them to silence Planned Parenthood instead, or at least allow right-wingers the same freedom of speech that Planned Parenthood and Media Matters have, you're asking them to cede power. And people don't do it. And so the reason we don't build these things is because we're not the elites, we're the people. I mean, even the elites among us are the people. The elites among us are working for National Review. They're not billionaires building stuff. And so this is the problem. And the problem with these tech guys is they are completely untouchable in terms of high taxes and high crime. None of the wages of leftism are going to touch them. They're not the ones whose behavior is going to be constrained. It's some poor schmuck out in Indiana somewhere, wherever. What did Hillary Clinton call it? Indianapolis or something like that. It's those people who are going to get hurt by liberalism. They're untouchable. So why should they do it? And I think that the only way to get them to do it is to make sure we keep the blue wave back if we can, that we keep the people in government, they get the people into government who will support the people, because the elites, they're just never going to cede power.